Can you think of an event that overthrew the government, had a large impact on a world war, and popularized a political ideology still largely believed in today? I can. The Russian Revolution. The Russian Revolution can help us, or studying the Russian Revolution can help us in many different ways. First of all, it can help us understand political ideologies like communism. And secondly, it can help us understand modern Russian politics with events like the Russia and Ukraine war. Now, I have always been interested in Russia, and I wanted to take this assignment as an opportunity to learn more about it. So, after spending hours researching the topic, I believe that I have mastered it and want to tell you guys about it. First, we will talk about what led up to the Russian Revolution. Then we will discuss what actually took place during the Russian Revolution. And finally, we will talk about what happened afterwards. With that said, let's talk about what led up to the Russian Revolution. Before the revolution, many Russians were dissatisfied with Russia. According to ThoughtCo, a website that has created scholarly level educational content for more than 20 years, even before World War I, many sections of Russia have become dissatisfied with the autocratic Russian government under Tsar Nicholas II. Tsar Nicholas II was a terrible leader who did little to improve the lives of Russians. He got Russia into financial issues with events like the Russo-Japanese War. Even more, he did little to improve the lives of Russians. And speaking of, peasant and working class life was awful. The working class had to work long hours with little pay. Even more, food was scarce, so famines were quite common. And when Russia was dealing with all of these issues, they got into a world war. And this event helped popularize ideas of revolution because people were realizing that they can't keep living like this and that change needed to occur. Now that we have covered what led up to the Russian Revolution, let's actually discuss what took place during the Russian Revolution. People believe that the Russian Revolution officially started on March 8, 1917, during an International Women's Day protest. On this protest, women were chanting about their hatred of the war, and eventually 100,000 workers joined. This event ultimately ended in the abdication of the Tsar, meaning that a provisional government was put in power. However, this provisional government was not well liked. It didn't fix a lot of the issues with Russia, and also continued the war effort, which World War I was something that Russia desperately needed to get out of. So it was very unpopular, and thus increasingly radical political parties were becoming more popularized. More specifically, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin. And in November of 1917, the Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, thus stormed the Winter Palace and ended the provisional government's rule and established communism as the political doctrine of Russia. Now, Vladimir Lenin was a communist revolutionary, and something he loved was political propaganda. And this was one of the most popular pieces. In this picture, one can see a man who is supposed to look like a pig and is clearly hoarding all the gold for himself. He clearly eats a lot and is hoarding all the money and resources for himself. This is supposed to show that capitalism only serves the 1%, while communism helps everyone. This shows that capitalism is evil and doesn't benefit everyone who needs the money and food. Lenin tried to show that capitalism was evil and communism was the more ethical, humane political doctrine. Now with the Bolsheviks in power and the Russian Revolution officially over, one might think that peace was established and that everything was okay. But unfortunately, history is always more complicated than that. After the Russian Revolution, Lenin tried his best to establish peace in Russia, but was faced with many issues, and also became quite violent because of them. James Ryan, the author of Lenin's Terror, The Ideological Origins of Early Soviet State Violence, a novel about Lenin's rule, explains, Lenin was the first and most significant Marxist theorist to dramatically elevate the role of violence as a revolutionary instrument. Lenin wholeheartedly believed in communism as a way to fix Russia's issues, and thus was very violent against anyone who opposed them. He was even considered to be a dictator by some people. But even with these mixed opinions, he still did a lot of good for Russia. Most notably, he nationalized industries and improved workers' rights, both of which helped improve the economy and workers' lives. Overall, the Russian Revolution marked a shift in Russia, showing that the people truly hold the power and will resist oppression. It was an event that was caused by people's lack of access to food, poor leadership, and getting into a useless war. The revolution officially started on March of 1917 during an International Women's Day protest that ended the Tsar's rule and thus established a provisional government. However, this provisional government was not well liked, and thus the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, were put in power, and Lenin was the new leader of Russia. Lenin, however, was a very controversial leader because he did do a lot of good for Russia, but also was very violent against anyone who opposed him. The Russian Revolution serves as a reminder for us to value our freedom and liberties as humans, and also helps us remember how war, famine, and terrible circumstances can drive people together and help ultimately change the course of history.